Crockett, I love Twitter, and I love Elon Musk.
Can't even say that with a straight face, can you?
I'm telling you, Twitter's the best social media out there. I've been saying it for years.
That might be the hottest take I've ever heard.
All right, let's get into it then. This is a personal video. Any views or opinions represented in this video are personal and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations we may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity.
The views expressed are for entertainment purposes only and not to be misinterpreted as actionable investment advice.
Hey everyone, my name is Crockett Calloway,
I'm Sahil Seth.
and this is UNinvested. Welcome back to our new series, actually, that we like to call Venture 500, where we are going to be breaking down massive companies, but most importantly, touching on their startup phase and how they got to where they are today. And so we're kicking it off today with Twitter.
Exactly. We thought this would be the best company because not many people know about the beginnings of Twitter, starting from a failing company. Everyone really is just talking about it now with Elon Musk getting bought for, over $40 billion. But they do have, a very interesting history.
Interesting to say the least. They've been around for more than a decade now, and they've had their ups and downs. And obviously now I know how you feel about Elon Musk, but I would say they're having a down right now. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna get into all the juicy details that I'm sure most of you guys have been seeing all over Twitter and social media today. It's super confusing. We've broken it down for you. We're gonna get into that eventually, so stick around. But first, we're gonna go through and just give you guys a run through of what Twitter's passes look like. Sahil was saying before, a lot of people say they are in a failure position right now. In many respects, they kind of started from failure. But we're going to break it down for you guys.
Yeah, so let's go all the way back to November 2004.
Tell me
I'm
about
3
it. Tell me
years
about
old.
it, Sahil.
I'm 3 years old, and there's this company, Audio. It's a podcasting company. Essentially, they're just doing podcasts, started by these three guys, Evan Williams, Biz Stone, and Noah Glass. And Jack Dorsey, NYU student grad at the time, he goes and works for this company. However, iTunes just launched his podcast. Maybe you're listening to this on Apple Podcast. And so they launched this company's like, okay, we're completely screwed. Kind of how Apple does it nowadays, screws over millions of startups when they just launch like one aspect on iOS.
They launched in 2005, right? And so this is like in Audio's infancy, right? They're still trying to work on the business.
Exactly. So then the founders at the time, they're like, okay, we need a new idea. Everyone that has like a side project, everyone's got side projects, work on that for a little bit and come back to us. And Jack Dorsey has this idea that he wants to, this status concept where people can send out text messages, essentially, and let people know, what their status is, what they're doing. And then the founders, they say, okay, this is the best idea. We're going to run with it.
So that's around 2006, right?
Yeah, so this is a few years after, yes.
Right. So they've gone from Audio. Now it's about around March 2006. Jack Dorsey, he kind of like mashes together this very early version of Twitter.
Exactly.
His first tweet is just setting up my Twitter. He spells Twitter
TWTTR.
Yeah. So it's not even the full Twitter name we have today. It doesn't have its logo or whatever. But they keep working on it with this new team that kind of formed out of Audio, right?
Exactly. So they keep working on it. Eventually, they're getting some headway. They finally build out a more so working model than they had just to scrap the week that he put together. And they win this best startup competition by Southwest. And this is kind of like the first time that they're getting, any relevancy in the space.
Mm-hmm. So they're gaining relevancy. They're gaining traction. Give it a couple months, nearly a year, April 2007. Dorsey, the guy who had originally put it together, Jack Dorsey, who I'm sure many of you have heard about now, he steps up as CEO.
Exactly, yeah. Evan Williams, you could be CEO. This is your idea. You probably know the product best. Who better to lead this company but you, essentially? And then, a little bit later, come July 2007, they finally get some funding. They get about $100K in their Series A, so that's just the first big major round of funding they have. And they're valued around, $200,000. Not much at the time, but that is still very prominent when a startup gets any sort of funding from a venture capital firm.
It's also interesting given what we've talked about in the last couple episodes. A lot today in the last couple of years, you're seeing these Series A's with huge funding, right?
Huge.
Tens, sometimes nearly $100 million for a Series A.
Oh, even more. I mean, we're talking about Adam Newman. He got millions and millions of dollars just straight off the bat.
Right, and that kind of implies some massive level of hype. They I'll say only lightly, like they only got $100,000
Yeah.
for their Series A, which valued them at $220,000.
Exactly.
Right.
But they did start getting a lot of traction out of this because just a few months later, in October 2007, they got like $5 million, boosting their valuation up to like way past $30 million. So that's like a few short months they're able to, X amount their valuation.
So they have a high valuation. This is in October 2007. They're writing high. They
Yeah.
ride that out for the next year. They really capitalize across the next year off of like the new hashtag feature, which had just come out, which is now like, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sure
I mean,
most of,
Twitter, like, hashtag, everyone's like, oh, hashtag, that just came about, but Twitter is really the ones where that started.
yeah, no, they invented the usage of that hashtag.
Yeah, I mean, you'll
which
see a
now-
lot of things really started on Twitter, funny
right,
enough.
like Instagram, Facebook, they all, LinkedIn, everyone uses hashtags now. But
Yeah.
so they popularize off of that. Cut to like about a year later, October 2008. There's a lot of frustration surrounding Jack Dorsey about like unaddressed server failures.
He's also just really like loud. He likes to go out and talk, give his personal opinion. Even today, you'll see Jack Dorsey, the former founder of Twitter. He just gives his opinions on a lot of things, whether it be politics, anything else happening in the media.
And so he does that on Twitter all the time, which
Yeah.
eventually leads in 2008. The shareholders of Twitter,
Yeah, they remove him.
Yeah, they remove him as CEO.
Yeah, not many years he started this, and the founder gets removed. Draws into another topic of discussion, like, are founders, the people that start startups, the best to lead conglomerates when they must become a bigger company and they need to be the real CEO?
It's almost the difference between like brains versus the bronze, right? Like,
Exactly.
Can you, even if you're smart enough to, like Jack Dorsey, hack together the earliest version of Twitter, like, should you be the one with the leadership expertise pushing it through?
Well,
Question for later.
I think yes, but we can get into that later. But what's funny about this, right around the time, Twitter gets this $500 million offer from Facebook, much higher than their valuation. The valuation is probably like around $100 million at the time. And the founders turned it down. Zuck is definitely like, what are you talking about? I'm offering you $500 million. And this is not the first time he tried to buy Twitter. He definitely tries other times later on, but this is the very first time. And they turn it down. He's kind of shocked, but they really see the value in Twitter. That kind of just proves to me they see how big Twitter can be so early on.
And so Twitter obviously turns down that offer, $500 million.
Yeah.
That is followed up by like a couple years of some weird like turmoil. Twitter, specifically Ashton Kutcher, and I think it's Evan Williams who's the new CEO. He takes up Jack Dorsey's position. They have this like feud on the Oprah Winfrey show about who's getting more Twitter followers.
Exactly. And then Oprah makes an account, and like this is when Twitter is blowing up. Once Oprah gets an account,
it's over.
It's over. You really kind of made it.
So they have this like turmoil. Later in 2009, there's this funny issue. Evan Williams, who is this guy who takes up his position as CEO when Jack Dorsey gets replaced.
He was in that audio company, one of the founders of that.
Yes, so he was one of the original guys. He's listed on Time's 100 most influential people. Jack Dorsey is not listed.
The guy who made Twitter, the guy that got the other guy on Time's 100 most influential people, is left off. That's gotta hurt.
Yeah,
that's gotta make you a little bit angry.
Oh my god, yeah, of course. And so like they consider to go through this like kind of turmoil over the next couple of years.
They're still blowing up at the same time. Like, Barack Obama, he goes on as like a moderator, hosts like a public town hall on Twitter. Kind of like the idea, like Elon wants to make it now, like Twitter just to be a public forum for people. But they begged that where Obama went on, and that that's obviously drawing crazy media attention to Twitter. More people signing up.
They then garner even more media attention, and when a little bit later, October 2012, they buy Vine. R.I.P. Vine. I know many of us.
Hopefully it comes back. I really love Vine.
There's
too.
like talks that it's gonna come back.
I mean, it's like Reels. TikTok is Vine, but just with better.
Worse.
Yeah, I'd say so.
No,
too.
Vine is the OG, and we love
exactly.
But so they buy Vine. This ultimately gives them enough leverage. Eventually, in 2013, they IPO, which we talked about in our last episode. That's their initial public offering. They're valued at $31 billion.
Exactly.
Right? So kind of an insane amount, right?
And we should mention Jack Dorsey, he's not gone. It's not like, Steve Jobs when Apple just kicked, if you guys know the history about Apple, they kicked Steve Jobs out completely, and he was just not involved with the company. Like, Dorsey was still very much involved with the company. He just wasn't CEO. He still had some say here and there. And this actually allowed him to come back as CEO later on in June 2015. After a lot of time has gone through, they're like, please come back, become the CEO, become the face again of Twitter.
And so now we're kind of approaching, so he comes back in 2015. Then we start to approach this era of kind of like what most of you guys remember Twitter for over the last, I would say, like 5 to 6 years of this like viral information culture that we saw in Twitter, right? And so obviously presidential election, Trump gets super popular on Twitter, achieves this whole new kind of consumer base. She has this huge reach. In 2017, there's this like rogue Twitter
Yeah.
user who hacks his account, deactivates his account. It's only gone for like 11 minutes.
Yeah,
and then
not
it
very
comes
much,
back
but
on.
it's still funny that a rogue Twitter point can do it. But the funny thing is, like, Twitter hasn't changed since its creation at this point. There's been no differences. They've barely monetized it, advertisers. One of the biggest problems they talk about now is Twitter's not really raking in, like, any money. They do some, but not as much as it could potentially.
Yeah, their revenues. So it's funny. We'll talk about this. Just stay tuned in a little bit when we talk about Elon's new vision. When you look at Facebook and Instagram's revenues over the last like 5 years, they've gone from like, I know Facebook's gone from like 11 million to 200 million.
Yeah.
Over the last 5 years, Twitter's revenue has fluctuated between, or excuse me, 11 billion to 200 billion.
Yeah.
Twitter's revenues have fluctuated between like 2.5 billion to 5 billion.
Exactly. That's just nothing there.
Oh, nothing. And by the way, that's like, I think it's like 2016, it's 2.5 billion. 2017, it's like 2 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion.
Yeah.
It's really nothing. And
Yeah.
so they're just kind of getting by,
Yeah, they're
relatively
really
speaking.
not monetized. They have millions of users on there, and they're just not getting any money from them. I know I haven't given a cent to Twitter since I've used it, and they give people a lot of value. So for some people, I know I've talked to a lot of my friends, like Twitter is the #1 news source, like straight up.
But so talk to me, like, let's go back to this time. It's kind of 2017, 2018. This idea of Twitter being a news source.
Yeah.
And kind of all the criticism that like social media is taking for
Exactly,
like, fake news and things like that.
All the data, holding all people's data. So like that's when Jack Dorsey goes and testifies to the U.S. Senate, along with Zuck, a bunch of other prominent CEOs, saying, no, we're at the privacy laws, we're protecting the data of our users. No fake information is being spread. We're doing our best to monitor all that. At the same time, Twitter's still coming under all this scrutiny. Even today, it's still coming under the same exact scrutiny it was back then.
And you just touched on it beautifully. It's this idea, and Twitter actually themselves in June 2019 releases a bunch of information on this. It's this idea that there are thousands, probably millions of fake Twitter accounts, bots, what we now call, or what Elon Musk is calling imposters.
Yeah.
These accounts that are just like spreading crazy, ridiculous fake news all over Twitter, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was like the whole reason Elon initially, if you guys follow the news about him buying Twitter, he was like, there's just so many fake accounts, way more than 5% what I was told. Twitter is just a bunch of fake users. They don't actually have the number of people that they claim to have.
So let's skip forward a little bit, right?
Now let's talk about what everyone wants to talk about, Elon Musk.
Right. So we'll leave the background on Twitter at that point, kind of 2020. Let's skip forward. So it's late January this year, so 2022.
Yeah.
Elon Musk begins investing personally in Twitter. And we see this, the securities exchange.
Yeah, he's like selling shares of Tesla, buying massive amounts of shares of like Twitter.
Yeah, and this is all public information because when you buy enough in a public company, like all this information is public. Kind of like we talked about in the past, like the blockchain, everything's public.
Exactly.
Like that.
Yeah.
So you can see how much he's buying. Eventually, as of March, his stake gets up to nearly 10%, 9.2%.
Yeah,
Twitter.
he becomes like the largest shareholder essentially.
Yes, according to the SEC, largest shareholder. He owns more than the actual board of directors. So 9.2% of the company.
And so he's a big voice already.
Yes. So that's in March. In April, he keeps buying more. So he buys up to $3 billion of Twitter, which totals 27% of the company.
And we should like mention that he's really big on Twitter. He has a lot of followers and a lot of influence. Like he's just tweeting like Twitter needs to be better. Like this is a great public forum. It can really like change the future of democracy. Right. He likes to say, and like how people can communicate, free speech, and all of that. And he's like just boasting these thoughts and criticizing Twitter at the same time.
Yeah, and like that's a really important thing. Sahil, is we've long known Elon Musk to be like crazy, not like explicit in the like obviously like swear words connotation, but explicit in just that he says whatever's
he's
on his
transparent.
Mind on
like
Twitter.
Whatever is on his mind is on Twitter.
Right.
But that's one of the things like why people like dedicate themselves. Like this is the honest man. Like he's gonna do right.
Is that the truth? Don't really know.
I think he's doing well.
All right, I know how you feel. Whatever. So he ends up owning 27%, which I mentioned before. By 9.2%, he already surpassed the board of directors. In April, Twitter announces Musk is going to actually join the board of directors, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like we should have been kind of slowly been clued on to something at this time. It wasn't that popular, obviously, because he hadn't gotten into the deal stuff yet. But he joins the board of directors. More than 6 months back, Jack Dorsey actually left Twitter. He was replaced by a new CEO.
Well, yeah, because Jack Dorsey went on to found his next venture, which we should always talk about.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like interesting. This founder, repeat founders who all had this like theme where they go on to do the next better thing and are usually more successful. But that's a little bit of a sidetrack.
Well, I mean, we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyways, he ends up getting replaced by the CEO, Parag Agrawal. Super smart guy. He's very vocal on Twitter. He's like excited for Musk to join the board of directors.
It's really big for Twitter to get Elon Musk on board. Like at the time, like Tesla's still doing like they are today, but Tesla's still really popping off. SpaceX is making a lot of traction finally.
Yeah.
And everyone's really like Elon Musk is in good graces with a lot of people. I mean, he had some scandals, I believe, but like investor wise, in the business realm, he's in a lot of good graces.
It seems like he's doing a good thing, but
everything he touches works.
Here's the theme we're gonna now get into. I like to call this like the great game of Twitter ping pong. Okay,
yeah.
Because for the next 5-10 minutes, however long we talk about this,
yeah,
pretty much everything we say ends up getting redacted, right? So
yes.
He says he's gonna join the board. April 10th, Elon Musk tweets he's no longer joining the board of Twitter. Basically, Parag Agrawal on Twitter says that there have been, quote, distractions ahead, but our goals and priorities remain unchanged. That is in regards to Musk's decision. He also says, quote, the decisions we make and how we make them remain in our hands, no one else's. And so that kind of implies a level of like maybe he felt threatened by Elon's influence.
I mean, it's hilarious. You could see like now that the court, we'll talk about this later, there's like court filing, all these text messages get released. You can really see the interaction. Elon talks to Parag and he's like, listen, like, what have you done today to make Twitter better? And the CEO of Twitter at the time is like, I'm working on it. And Elon's like, you're too slow. Not joining board, I'm buying Twitter. And it just leaves it off like that.
So he leaves on that, and literally 4 days later, Elon Musk offers to buy Twitter at like $54 per share, which is basically $43 billion.
And that's like a huge premium. Like Twitter's not trading at $54 a share.
And so it's a 38% premium above what the share price is. But let's go. Remember we said, Sahal mentioned Facebook offered to buy Twitter
for $500 million.
For $500 million back in 2010 or 2008?
Yeah, like 2008, something like that.
Right. So $500 million. Elon Musk offers to buy Twitter for $43 billion. An absurd amount. Obviously, their valuations changed so much since then, but it kind of just shows you like how far Twitter.
And the funny thing is, like Twitter loses money every year. If you go to like their profit loss statement, like they are losing money. Their expenses are more than their revenues. The costs of running Twitter is much higher than any money they bring in.
So this is where the story starts to get, again, follow the ping pong here, right? So I think we have to focus on like why he wants Twitter so badly. We know Elon Musk is really vocal about free speech. Like,
exactly.
We literally just talked about himself. He himself is like super explicit. He tweets, quote, I invested in Twitter as I believe in its potential to be the platform for free speech around the globe. So that's like, he wants to transform it. We've seen in the last couple of years, a ton of people have been removed from Twitter, like super vocal people like Andrew Tate and Donald Trump. Like they've been removed from Twitter. So he kind of wants to revert that. It's looking like, right?
He's saying it's too, one-sided on Twitter. We're not getting like both sides, a really holistic view of the people's voices.
Right. So so it's funny. So then Twitter basically says, because they're clearly a little freaked out by his presence, they didn't let him join the board of directors. They basically put in this, they call it the poison pill amendment into the Twitter deal, which basically means that if the deal starts to go through, individuals can buy shares at a higher premium, which eventually what it will do is it'll dilute Elon Musk's stake in the company.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a disincentive for him to buy it because it's basically gets triggered if Elon acquires more than 15% of Twitter shares. Yeah. More people can buy at a premium, which basically will like dilute his shares from like 15% to 10 to 5.
Exactly.
Lower and lower and lower. So he gets freaked out. Not freaked out enough though, because a week later he gathers commitments from individuals and firms across the planet.
A16Z, we've talked about them a lot. They're just a prominent venture capital firm. SBF, if you listen to our last episode on FTX, he decides to roll over his shares. So basically, rollover means like essentially if you had a lot of shares outstanding of Twitter, you could just buy into become part of him buying it, taking it private.
Right. And so he goes to all these people. He builds out pitch decks for them. In his pitch decks, he says that his goal is to quintuple Twitter's revenue by 2028. Yeah. Now, if you remember what we just talked about, the revenue has been stagnant for the last 5 years at $5 billion. Quintupling the revenue would put it on the same status as like Instagram and Facebook, but like,
which should be possible considering the amount of like users they have.
Should be possible, but like, how feasible is that? Like, that's a pretty lofty
the
goal.
Timeline he wants is really aggressive, and it's funny enough because he has these really aggressive timelines on all the rest of his companies, like Tesla, fully, self-driving. SpaceX going to the moon and coming back with one rocket. At the times when he made those same commitments, they were also thought of as completely impossible.
Mhm.
That's like the one thing. It's like when he's running Twitter, a lot of people like to say like Elon Musk. I found this on Twitter. A bunch of prominent people are tweeting this essentially like Elon Musk's other companies. If the software or anything messes up, people die. If
Mhm.
the rocket fails, people die.
Right.
If Tesla's self-driving fails, people die in a car crash.
Mhm.
That's why it's like he should be able to handle the amount of pressure that Twitter brings. But the thing is, like, can he do all those companies?
Mhm.
Which is interesting to me.
And to be honest, I don't really know.
Yeah.
But so he says, and this is in April, he says him and Twitter have reached a deal. He's going to buy it for $44 billion.
Yes.
Okay? Here comes the ping pong. Cut two. About a month later, in May, Musk tweets that the Twitter deal is, quote, temporarily on hold.
Yeah.
And this comes after him saying he would reverse Trump's Twitter ban. He would, quintuple their revenue. Like, clearly, Twitter has kind of reached a feud with him where, like, maybe he shouldn't buy it. Maybe he is having second thoughts. He keeps tweeting out over the next couple days.
The whole thing about this is, like, fully, like, you could just track this whole thing just following Elon's Twitter. Just, like, day by day, he's like, this is happening. I'm going to buy it. Never mind. I'm backing out. Twitter's false. Twitter's fraudulent.
And they're also upset, too, because, he's been tweeting all these negative things.
And then their shares are dropping. Like, Twitter's getting, like, the share of Twitter is getting cheaper. Some people think this is a tactic by him. Say he's going to, pull out of the deal. Twitter's, like, going to shambles over this.
And so why is that significant? So, what does Twitter do?
It just, essentially, Twitter's like, listen, no, like, you're screwing us over. You're now going to actually go through with the deal that you said you were going to go through with.
Right. And so they, like you just mentioned it, their stock drops 12%. Twitter's actually like, this could be a strategy. We think this is stock manipulation. Twitter shareholders file a lawsuit against Elon Musk, right?
Yeah, they want the premium. Like, Twitter, like, shareholders were making a lot, like, Elon Musk was buying it at a premium that no one else was going to buy it for. Like, this is probably the best deal Twitter's going to see in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And they all realize that once the share prices stop dropping, they're like, oh my God, like, this is going to make us even worse. Mm-hmm. So they have to go through with the deal now. They have no alternative.
But here comes the ping pong again, because then Elon Musk says in a couple tweets that he has been blown away by the number of what he calls imposter accounts, fake accounts on Twitter. Yeah. He says he's moving to terminate his acquisition of Twitter.
Exactly.
So going back on the ping pong, which drives Twitter and Twitter shareholders crazy. They actually sue him in Delaware court.
Exactly.
We've talked about it a couple times on the podcast. Delaware is where a lot of startups will incorporate because they have really lenient startup laws. So they sue him in a Delaware court to, like, honor his obligations to Twitter. Basically, this ends up forcing Elon Musk to go through with the acquisition.
Yeah.
We're skipping some, like, intermediary steps.
He actually just decides to buy it eventually because he knows he's going to lose. Like, you've actually seen, like, people go through, like, all the court filings and, like, you can, like, see and you could tell based on, like, the Delaware laws that Elon will lose, and I think he understands that. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that the filings did bring was, like, you could now see all the text messages. Like, Elon Musk is the funniest thing he will say to people.
So, I mean, like, he literally, a day before the Delaware court filing is, like, supposed to go through, he says he's going to buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's, like, totally freaked out, right? So Elon Musk now head of Twitter, I think as of November, or you know what, October 28th, right?
Exactly.
As of October 28th, he's the head of Twitter. November 4th, he lays off half of Twitter's workforce.
Yeah, he said he was going to do like 75%, something like crazy. He's like, Twitter's totally unproductive. No one does any work. And everyone's like, Twitter's going to fail.
7,500 people he lays off.
Yeah.
He lays them off in an email. The first line of the email is, "Today's your last day working at the company." Apparently the subject line was just like, "Your future at our company." Like, it's like the most robotic thing
Your future.
You've ever seen.
Your future. There is no future.
There is no future. And since then he's done a bunch of things. He's brought everyone back onto Twitter who was removed. Right?
Exactly. Donald Trump just came back. He did that with a poll. He put a Twitter poll. He was like, should Donald Trump comes back? It wins by like 1 or 2%. So now Donald Trump's back. He also forces employees to come back into office, and a lot of people criticize Elon Musk for not thinking like, on a worldview, more so like an American like centric viewpoint, because like not everyone in the world can just come back into the office like that.
Yeah.
They're living in multiple other places. I was just like reading, if you just read on Twitter, you see like people in like Ireland saying, oh, there's like a housing shortage, like we can't move back to the office right now.
And so like he's clearly like, they feel horrible. He's clearly regretting his decision because he ends up like asking so many of them to come back.
Yeah, exactly.
But he then, and it kind of backfires. He announces Twitter Blue, which is the paid verification service. I know most of you guys probably know. For our listeners, that
$8.
Yeah,
$8.
So it's $8. Normally, if you're a celebrity or public figure, you get it verified. But he brings this on, and what it ends up doing is the opposite of what he wanted, because he wanted to remove all these imposters from Twitter. But now that you can just pay your way to blue status, like we've seen this flood of people on Twitter impersonating users.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite like example is just like there's this account. If you guys know Lockheed Martin, big like defense contractor for the U.S., make like fighter jets, all that. There's this fake account called Lockheed Martini, and they tweeted like, "Oh, we're gonna like stop production, like human rights, all this," and their stock price literally drops.
Yeah.
Because of this. This happened to multiple other companies where these fake accounts like said these like crazy things, and their stock prices were just dropped. So
I wouldn't be shocked, by the way, if we're gonna see more like stock manipulation lawsuits.
Yeah, no, there's definitely gonna be like someone's gonna sue him for this specifically. Like, there's definitely people that got fired over this,
and people are already angry. As of today, when we're filming this, November 28th, Elon tweeted Apple's also threatened to withhold Twitter from its app store, but won't tell us why. Apparently, Apple has like responded privately to Elon Musk saying like, "What are you talking about? We're not doing that." There's so much.
Yeah, and he keeps tweeting about it. Everything is like updated live on his Twitter, keeping no conversations private.
It's just we don't know what's real. We don't know what's what, but suddenly we're being slammed with all of it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, and it's so explicit.
A few days ago, people were like, "Twitter's gonna fail." Like it's just gonna shut down, and then you see all these like past Twitter like engineers like just tweeting these horrible things, just like saying Elon's the worst ever.
I mean, look, I think if it's a matter of like he's gonna fail, if he's already laid off half the workforce, he has lofty goals, he's feuding with everyone, like it's almost a matter of like, has he already failed? And if he already has, can he come back from it? You know,
Exactly.
like if you're starting off on such a negative note, are you ever gonna gain back like reputational trust from people?
Yeah, exactly.
You never know. But again, it's going to continue to develop over the next.
Yeah, I'm excited to like keep tracking it. All you have to do to track is just follow Elon Musk on Twitter. If you don't already, I highly suggest it just for the comedy standpoint.
But if you don't want to scroll through all of his tweets, you can just stay updated with UNinvested on our Instagram and on on all of our accounts, on our Linktree, on our YouTube, whatever.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna keep following that, and we're also gonna keep doing this Venture 500 playlist.
Yeah, we like it.
Yeah,
breaking down like top companies, seeing their history. Maybe we'll do like Apple next, because almost every Fortune 500 top company, they stem from a venture background.
We will keep getting into it.
Yeah.
But for now, as always,
I'm Sahil Seth.
I'm Crockett Calloway.
And this is UNinvested.
Thank you.